So this is today. Today is yesterday, and tomorrow is also today.
You traveled through time to the present.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you get how time travel works.
It's like we're stuck. You know, like a needle on a scratch record.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
Slow down! What are you, in a damn time loop or something?
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean that I'm Professor Robert E.G. Black, and this is the Groundhog Day Project. We're on minute 4 of the film. I know it's been a while. I don't remember if I was mentioning things in minute 3 from the commentary track, so I'll do a little catch up in the commentary track. Ramis has been complimenting Carol Bivens, who he thinks is a great actress. No, he calls her an actress he really likes. He calls Willie Garson a good actor. And then he mentions, without any detail at all, the Stephanie DeCastro explanation thing that we talked a bit about many weeks ago. And in this minute, as the song Weatherman begins, he points out that he and George Fenton wrote the lyrics together, and this song got him, Harold Ramis, membership in ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. We're in the newsroom still. Phil has gotten to the door to leave. He has met up with Larry and Kenny. Is Larry still on the screen in this minute? No, Larry has walked away. We're with Kenny, mid-sentence. He had said, yeah, listen, if for any reason we come in on this minute reason, you don't want to rush back, I can do the 5 tomorrow. Oh, in my notes from covering minute 4 previously, I have an insert about the scene from the script with Action News executive producer Gil Hawley, but I've already read you that entire scene, so I'm not going to do it again here, even though repetition is really the heart of the Groundhog Day Project. There is a bit that I have here. I'll just say these 4 lines. Hawley, and you'll do it next year and the year after too. When I worked in San Diego, I covered the Swallows coming back to Capistrano for 10 years in a row. Phil, you should have killed the guy who made you do that. Hawley, I wanted to do it. Phil, then you should have killed yourself. I don't want to get stuck with the groundhog for the rest of my life. On the nose irony, that kind of thing. For a line that's actually in a scene I don't know if they really wanted to film, it's interesting how on the nose it is. But also I guess you do that a few times so that you can pick the scene that you want to have that line. Because you should have that line somewhere early in the film where someone tells you outright what's coming, even though you don't necessarily realize it yet. Phil says, come on, I want to stay an extra second in Punxsutawney, please. Back to Kenny. He says, look, Rita, and as soon as he mentions Rita, Phil looks away from Kenny, looks up like he's trying to find her. He turns to his left, kind of toward the camera. His eyebrows raise because he has spotted her. Kenny says, Rita thinks it would be a great idea to stay around for some of the events, get some incredible footage. It's about here that we cut to Rita. Second 12. She's posed in front of the blue screen in front of camera 3. Her blue coat has made her fairly invisible in front of the, what's it called, chroma key? The blue screen. Interrupting from editing because I know I do not say it here where she is. She is standing in front of the blue screen. The movie started with Phil saying, somebody asked me, where would you like to be? And I said, probably right here. And where does he point? He points to the middle of the blue space that is the blue screen that is now where Rita is standing. So if you take Groundhog Day, strictly speaking, structurally as a rom-com, we already have the indication that Phil will get together with Rita because the place he wants to be is with her. I don't know if I actually even made that observation that explicitly in the blog, but I know it was hinted at here and there. But I definitely miss it in what I'm about to say. But anyway, back to me last week or whenever I recorded this. And she's kind of being playful and childish and amazed I've made jokes about this. where she said she's not easily amazed, and we see here she's quite easily amazed by a blue screen. But I don't mean to complain about Rita anymore. Rita's fine. I did spend a time in the blog complaining about Rita, and you'll probably hear about some of those things. The people, the fun, the excitement. You haven't worked with her yet, have you? She's really nice. It's when he says she's really nice that we cut to Rita. She's doing like a playful little arm sway thing, but then she notices that Phil's looking at her. She stops, she smiles. Clearly both a little embarrassed, but also I don't think she's ashamed of this. She's having a good time. Kenny continues, I think she's going to be a really good producer. In my notes from talking about this scene previously, I said by the second revision, Rita is new. Yeah, that is a switch from the original script. Just a reminder of that one, because in the original script, Reuben originally imagined the story as a young man's journey through life, like Siddhartha. Rita was the experienced producer who'd been around for a while, and Phil was sort of new. And when they cast Bill Murray, who of course Harold Ramis had a history with, then they kind of switched it around. And so Rita becomes new, and Phil is the one who's been around a while and is a bit jaded. And then I already read this in the Holly scene. Phil, you can't send Rita out on a story like this. She's just a cub, a pup, still wet behind the ears. Look at her. Her ears are sopping wet. This needs a Woodward or a Bernstein. It's a big story. People need to know. Rita, intrigued. What's the story? Holly, the Punxsutawney Groundhog Day Festival. Rita, Gil, if it's alright with you, I'd rather follow up on the nurses' strike. So, Rita's not interested. In the film version, Rita is very interested. It's her first time doing, well, I don't know if it's her first time doing a producer role on a location, but it is her first time with Phil doing that. And it seems, I think there's an implication that she hasn't done it much, if at all, without him. Kenny says, you guys are gonna have fun. So we're back on Kenny and Phil. And Phil says, she's fun, but not my kind of fun. I will be here for the 5. And he calls for her, Rita. Phil walks away. We cut to Kenny. And then as Kenny walks to the left, past a monitor, the camera goes down to the monitor. A nice helicopter shot over the Ohio River. Big blue thing. Second 34. Weatherman is getting going. We pan up. West End Bridge. Three River Stadium to the left. Downtown Pittsburgh ahead. And we transition from that monitor to the footage itself. And just after the transition, we get an on-screen credit for casting by Howard Feuer. He has 95 credits as casting director from 1978 to 2003. Just prior to Groundhog Day, you've got Basic Instinct, Single White Female, Hero. And just after, you've got Fearless, Little Buddha, and Philadelphia. He won the Casting Society of America's Award for Best Casting Comedy in 1992 for The Fisher King, and would be nominated in 1994 for The Ref in the comedy category and Philadelphia in drama. He also won for Moonstruck, Mississippi Burning, Dead Poet Society, and That Thing You Do. Essentially, he cast a whole bunch of great movies. If you look at the list, the 95, so many are good. And a few of them are favorites of mine. Like The Fisher King and Groundhog Day. And The Ref, though, it's a little problematic nowadays. He died December 20th, 2004 at the age of 56. Second 49, we get a different helicopter shot of downtown. We're centered on one PPG Place. That's the building with the 4 little pointy things on the corners. If you've seen, what is that movie? Is it Land of the Dead? I think it's Land of the Dead that takes place in Pittsburgh, and that's the building they're in. We're looking southeast, panning around to the right, then down. We get the on-screen credit for music by George Fenton. We've already talked about him. The news van is barely visible at the bottom of the screen, turning. It's going to the right, our right, turning off Stanwyck Street onto Fort Pitt Boulevard, so turning 90 degrees to go down and to the left. The black building it is coming around the corner of is 11 Stanwyck Street. It used to be called the Westinghouse Tower. And the final on-screen credit for this minute is costume designer Jennifer Butler. We will have to unpack who she is next week. Get into some personal history of Bill Murray.
Most of life is just junk, right? It's filler. And then there's these moments. when all the randomness turns into something perfect. It's like life's dropping all the bullshit just for a second to show us how amazing it could be all the time if it wanted to.
I don't know. I think maybe we're supposed to become like better people. Though I honestly don't even know how that could be possible.
Ever think about it? We must miss so many of them. All those tiny perfect things are just poof, gone, lost forever. But not today.
That is a disturbingly inspirational idea, Mark.
It's a perfect day. You couldn't have planned a day like this.
Well, you can. It just takes an awful lot of work.
Time.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
What if we found them all? All the perfect things in this one town, in this one day. We could collect them.
Time loop of the week is, I believe it would be the episode from just last week as I'm recording this. The episode of Dropout's Game Changer called Deja Vu, in which, well, I should probably tell you what the show is, because you're probably not familiar with it. Some of the episodes of Game Changer are on YouTube, you can find them. Essentially, it is a game show where the rules are different for each episode. There's some sequel episodes that continue some stuff, but for the most part, contestants get on there and they don't know what they're going to be playing. This episode, it begins with trivia questions that the contestants are very unlikely to have any idea what the answers are. The first three of which are: which chemical element has the atomic number 87? What is the capital of Burkina Faso? Who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1970? A few more questions, some challenges where they have to do stuff. There's a nice mechanic where they have some cash, but it's all the cash they're going to have for the whole show. They don't know what's going to be happening, so they have to they give money to the host, Sam Reich, and at one point they start bribing other people to come out on stage. And it's a pretty funny mechanic because after a few repetitions, spoilers, they're starting to run out of money. So it's harder to do some of the things. So then at one point as the show's going along, they've done a few challenges, physical things, more trivia. Sam does a dance, the weenus, that the players are supposed to join in, but a cameraman with a handheld camera gets a little too close and Sam accidentally kicks the camera. They have to cut, reset back to the beginning. The players leave the stage, go backstage, and then the whole thing starts over again. They get reintroduced, same trivia questions, which chemical element has the atomic number 87, etc. Except now, they either remember the answers from the time before, or they've had a chance to look it up in the brief time they're backstage and they have access to their cell phones again. There's also a fun math problem that changes each round, where it's like x plus 2 equals 8, or something like that, I think, to start, so they know x is 6. And the next time it's like x plus y equals 12, or whatever it was. And now if they remember that x is 6, then they can figure out what y is. And the equation changes so that they have to remember the equation, remember the parts of it, and be able to put it together. And so the trivia part goes a little faster. Some of the challenge get a little easier. Some get harder because they have to come up with different ways to do them. And I forget how many times the show actually resets. In behind the scenes footage, Sam said that he wanted it to be 7 times that things repeat. And I think they actually did it faster than that. They did it in like 5 because they figured out a couple things early. And yeah, it was pretty good. And it's fun to see a sort of time loop format in a game show, because it does make it fun, is remembering answers to things you had no idea before, but now you know them. And for now, I kind of remember the answers. Chemical element with an atomic number 87, francium. Capital of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. Who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1970? Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I did write down the answers, but I also remembered them. I just wrote them down just in case. Especially the Ouagadougou. That one's stuck in my head now. Anyway, that's the time loop of the week for this week. It's fun that there's still time loops all the time. I'm about to finally watch the one from the reboot Quantum Leap series. I think I'm on episode 8 of that show, and I think the time loop is episode 11, I want to say. And I haven't watched it yet. I have still been keeping notes in my last syllable of recorded time notes, even though that script kind of got left behind. I still make notes because if I suddenly had some time, I would try to write it. That's my time loop script for those who aren't paying attention. If you listen to the show The First Syllable, that is essentially why that show is called The First Syllable. It was starting as a show about trying to write my time loop script. It later became a show about writing in general, and specifically writing a novel this past winter break called Four Finger Discount, and then from February into March and the beginning of April, I think is when I finished it, a slasher film script called Death, 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 with updates on those. The week this episode comes out, I believe we get the third in a series dealing with spoilers for Death, 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 in which I take the cast of 19 characters and try to sort it on down to a much more manageable number for the rewrite of that script. Anyway, that's Groundhog Day, minute 4. We will not get to minute 5 next week because I gotta tell you about Jennifer Butler and Bill Murray, and I might have to get into the feud with Harold Ramis, because there was a lot going on in these guys' lives while they were making this movie. And I think it might be relevant, because I'm not sure that Bill Murray, well, no, not even that I'm not sure. Bill Murray didn't learn the lessons that Phil Connors does. Bill Murray could use a time loop, I think.
First, I played the game by the rules from 1 to 10. Then you took me round again.
I think I have traveled through time.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, lapping, like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is.
Man, are you hungry? I haven't eaten since later this afternoon.
Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.